Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Joseph Greco. I'm the Chair of the Committee of Adjustments. We call the meeting to order. Frank Bruni's to my right, Mr. Wayne Greco to my left, and Miss Melinda McGregor to my left. These are the members of the committee, so welcome you all. And can I get a call the meeting to order, please? All in favor, motion. Can I also get a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting, please? First from Melinda, second from Frank. All in favor? Minutes from the past meeting are approved. If you'd like to give the land acknowledgement.
We'll do our land acknowledgement. I acknowledge with respect that we're in Robinson Huron Treaty Territory, that the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and known as Bawating. Bawating is the home of Garden River First Nation, Batchewana First Nation, and the historic Sault Ste. Marie Métis Council. Mr. Chair, I've not been advised of any disclosure of pecuniary interest. None declared, we'll note. So we'll move on to the first matter on our agenda, and that would be an application from 356 Cathcart Street, Angela Sauvé being the applicant, and I don't believe Angela is in the gallery. Is there anyone else in the gallery here to speak to the application at 356 Cathcart Street? None? So Angela Sauvé is the owner of Civic number 356 Cathcart Street. It is located on the north side of Cathcart Street between Hudson Street and Beverly Street. The subject property is designated residential in the official plan and is zoned R3 low density residential. Relief is requested from the provisions of bylaw 2005-150 as amended to allow an accessory use second unit in the basement of the existing home, whereas the lot frontage and lot area do not meet the required minimum regulations. Specifically, section 9.7.2 of bylaw 2005-150 require a minimum lot area of 480 square meters. The applicant seeks to reduce the minimum required lot area to 368 square meters. It also requires a minimum required lot frontage of 18 meters. The applicant seeks to reduce that minimum frontage requirement to 10 meters. Notice of public hearing was sent by personal mail to neighboring properties by posting a sign on site and posting on the city website. As part of the application review, this proposal was circulated to the following internal departments and external agencies for their review. Engineering, legal, and public works had no comment or objection. The Building Division, Fire Services, Public Utilities Commission, and Public Works did not respond. Planning Division staff have no objections to the application. Although the property does not conform to the current zoning bylaw for frontage and lot size, it is very similar to many lots in the immediate neighborhood that are zoned R3 and contain 2 or more residential units. It is an existing lot of record and the building envelope will not change with the addition of a basement unit. Parking spaces for both units can be accommodated in the rear of the property, which is accessible from a city-owned laneway. As such, planning is satisfied that the application is minor and desirable and does not conflict with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and official plan. Staff comments and recommendations. There was no response from circulated property owners and no objections from staff or outside agencies. There was no evidence presented to suggest that approval would have a negative impact. And those are my comments, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Is there anybody in the gallery with any comments? Do you have any comments from committee members on this application? Yes.
I don't have any comments. I just feel like because it's similar to the rest of the neighborhood that probably accepted and forth with it.
Anybody else comment? I too am in support of the application. It's in line with the official guidelines on housing currently. So with that being said, I'm going to close the floor. Can I have a motion for the application, please?
I'll put forth a motion to approve the application.
Okay, and can I have a second for that motion? Mr. Greco, all in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Next matter on our agenda is application A1324. Subject property is 110 Pym Street. The owner is 110 Pym Inc. And Mr. Sambiasucci is here as agent on the application. The property is irregular in shape and abuts Pym Street, Herrick Street, and Church Street and is approximately 0.5 hectares in size. The subject property is designated residential in the official plan and zoned R4 medium density residential. Relief is requested from the provisions of bylaw 2005-150 as amended by permitting 108 units in the 5-story apartment building currently under construction. Specifically, sections 5 and 9.8.2 have the following requests for relief. Lot coverage, increase the maximum lot coverage to 30.8% from 30%. Frontage on Church Street, the minimum required frontage is 23 meters. They seek to reduce the required lot frontage to 20.72 meters. Exterior side yard, which is Herrick Street, the minimum required exterior side yard is 7.5 meters. Reduce the required exterior side yard to 2.75 meters. Interior side yard abutting Church Street, minimum required interior side yard is 7.5 meters. The applicant seeks to reduce the required interior side yard to 6.4 meters. Rear yard abuts Pym Street, minimum required rear yard is 10 meters. Reduce the required interior side yard to 3 meters. Parking, required parking ratio is 1.25 spaces per dwelling unit, which equals 135 spaces, including 8 barrier-free spaces. The applicant seeks to reduce the required parking ratio to 1 space per dwelling unit, which would be 113 spaces, including 7 barrier-free spaces. Parking encroachments into the exterior side yard. Parking is not permitted in an exterior side yard. The applicant seeks to permit 12 parking spaces to be in an exterior side yard, which abuts Herrick Street. Parking encroachments in the front yard. Parking is not permitted in the required front yard, and the applicant seeks to permit 3 parking spaces in a required front yard abutting Church Street. Barrier-free parking. Barrier-free parking spaces are 6% of total required parking, which equals 8 barrier-free spaces. Reduce barrier-free spaces to 7 parking spaces. Landscaped open space, minimum required landscape open space is 30%, and they seek to reduce the landscaped open space to 16.5%. Notice of public hearing was sent by personal mail to neighboring properties by posting a sign on site and posting on the city website. As part of the application review, this proposal was circulated to the following internal departments and external agencies for their review. Conservation Authority, Engineering, Fire Services, Legal, and Public Works had no comment or objection. Building Division, PUC Distribution, Inc., Public Utilities Commission did not respond. Planning Division staff advised that a similar application was approved by the Committee of Adjustment in 2017 and approved on appeal to the Ontario Municipal Board. The OMB or ALPAT approval limited the development to 104 units. However, the applicant now wishes to add an additional 4 units for a total of 108 units within the building. No changes are proposed to the building envelope. The applicants have received a building permit that complies with the OMB ALPAT ruling, and the building is currently under construction. The proposed variance is related to increased lot coverage, reduced setbacks, and reduced landscape open space listed as numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10 in the application, still conform to the OMB ALPAT ruling. If the committee denies this application, those variances will still continue to exist for the property, and the development will continue to be limited to 104 units. It is important to note that planning staff are of the opinion that the variances related to increased lot coverage, reduced setbacks, and reduced landscape open space meet the 4 tests of a minor variance when viewed together or individually. The requested variances related to parking spaces listed as numbers 6 and 9 in the application are different from the original application and OMB ruling. The applicant is proposing to reduce the total number of required parking spaces from 135 to 113. On March 18th, 2024, City Council approved a change to the zoning bylaw to reduce minimum parking requirements from 1.25 spaces per dwelling unit to 1 space per dwelling unit, which would be 108 for this development. At the time of this report, and that was in April, the new bylaw has not come into effect yet. With that said, the proposed parking reduction to 113 spaces is appropriate for the property, especially considering its downtown location. A full range of commercial and institutional amenities are located in the downtown within close proximity to the proposed development site. Many people who do not drive, own a car, or prefer to walk or cycle choose to live in the downtown due to its walkability and close proximity to a variety of amenities. Experience has shown that a parking ratio of 1 space per unit is ample for residential developments located within the downtown area. Both council and the Committee of Adjustment have approved previous residential developments with a parking ratio of 1 space per unit within the downtown. Planning staff also wish to note that the zoning bylaw allows for required parking spaces to be located on a neighboring lot for developments within the downtown, provided that the parking spaces are located within 300 meters of the benefiting lot. The applicant is proposing that 33 parking spaces be located on a nearby lot, 884 Queen Street East, which is also owned by the applicant. This lot is within 50 meters of 110 Pym Street, but separated by a city-owned laneway, thus the parcels cannot merge. The zoning bylaw indicates that the land to be used for parking must be held under a lease having a definite term in excess of 10 years. Because of the permanent nature of this building, planning staff recommend a condition of approval include a longer defined agreement period lasting at least 25 years. Finally, the applicant is seeking to reduce the barrier-free parking requirement from 8 spaces to 7. Barrier-free parking spaces are calculated in the zoning bylaw as 6% of the total required parking spaces for residential uses. With the requested reduction in required parking to 113 spaces, 7 barrier-free spaces out of 113 would meet the requirement of 6% of total parking spaces. It is therefore planning staff's opinion that the overall parking space reductions, including barrier-free, are more minor in nature. To conclude, it is planning staff's opinion that the requested variances meet the 4 tests of a minor variance and as such have no objection to the approval of this application. Staff comments and recommendations. There was no recorded response from circulated property owners and no objections from staff or outside agencies. No evidence has been presented to date to suggest that approval would have a negative impact. Since planning staff recommends that the lease of off-site parking spaces be for a minimum term of 25 years, having the applicant enter into a lease of 21 years or more could be attached as a condition of consent. And those are my submissions, Mr. Chair, although there may be someone in the gallery that wishes to speak.
Mr. Biasucci, before we get to your comments, I have to ask if there's anybody in the gallery who wishes to speak to this matter. Seeing none. Oh, yes, sir.
Sir,
Come on up to the podium.
you should speak first.
Sam.
Mhm.
Okay, sorry, my apologies. Mr. Biasucci, we'd like you to make your comments first and then we can hand that off to the individual. My apologies.
Mr. Chairman. Steve staff, as fine, this is touch up. Building the original 4 units, on which which had more storage space that probably require after having reviewed everything that was necessary. Stations, permanent or additional spaces suit for more use dwelling unit. For small ones. It will better be found as unrelated uses as opposed to or approach the parking. We've found the space for more space and be added. Additional parking the Madame Tower. First, as a family on that but lot, so adding that not an issue at all of that stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Biasucci. Sir, if you'd like to come up and make your comments if you like, and then we will need your name and your address for the record, please.
My name is Bob Brady. I live at 121 Church Street. I'm adjacent to the development.
Okay,
And what I'm here to speak and ask a couple of questions. Um, you know, I'm not opposed to the development, but I'm certainly opposed to them circumventing the bylaw. And the bylaw was passed middle of December in 2005, when I was paying attention. And, you know, to take and to raise the bylaws, so at that time they accepted it. In my opinion, to allow for a building this in the midst of resident. It's changed whole res to a totally different environment. And the fact that, you know, there were 42 people that resided on that property at one time, including Tara Hall. And now there's up to 104, and ask other 4. And this medium density, can you tell me what medium density is?
If we can refer to the planning department for that comment, please.
I'd have to look up the exact, our exact kind of, well, it's not exact, it'd be more or less a guideline. I think it would be, I don't want to speak. I don't think it'd be about persons per acre. Or 20 units per acre, but I'd have to look it up. I don't have it offhand. So that would be medium density, yeah.
Would be apartment buildings.
Well, this is one of the issues that I have with this whole development. You're asking, what, not many people, 104, now you're asking for 108 people, the company is asking. And, you know, the traffic is going to be, even if there's only half of them that own vehicles. Because come down my lane, that can be for safety. One is no buffers I do on a main street. The lane is wide. Myself and others from the apartment next door walk in that lane to get to the back. And this should be really concerning to all of us, both of us. And, really concerned is that traffic down Cameron Lane and that trying to access. I was under the impression, I said to Jeffrey and to the company, that when I gave up my right to the north Cameron Lane, I understood that all the variants and everything was going to be adjusted at that time, and we wouldn't be asking anymore. And here, I called Michelle and to talk to her because I can't read the map, but I see yellow markings. I'm saying to myself, why are these yellow markings this stuff already passed? It wasn't, but I understand. And you are bringing even more variance to this building quarters up, and it can't stop at this point. The other thing is, my neighbor came to me that's next door, Hornet, and she said to me, "Do you know anything about what they're doing to church?" And I said, as far as I understand, they were going to use church as a front yard, and I think I heard you mention that. And we're going to firm that's end of the property to get next floor on that apartment. The bylaw is 5 floors. They couldn't give me a definition of grade. I gave them a definition that was trans to stop this construction where they firm up to make the base look like it's half under and to get an extra floor on that. Now, I had questioned whether or not they were going to do that. Nice. We're making preparation. So it's 5 floors, and I understand there's going to be a penthouse on top of it. For that, when I had meetings with Steve, he told me that, yeah, they were pushing bylaws, 5-story. I'm not against developing something in that area. Certainly like you to take them to state you people take into consideration medium density, because really concerned me the number of people that are going to be in that building and the safety that my tenant and I having to back out on the lane. Cars, God made little apples, there's going to be an accident of some sort. But that is one of the that meet, they were all supposed to be out of the way, and here we are again. The building's put us up, and we're asking very people to move in. Well, those are my concerns.
Before I make any comment, Mr. Biasucci, would you like to make any comment or maybe provide some clarification to this gentleman, Mr. Bradley? Or Mr. Brady, sorry. That may help him. Can you shed some light on it maybe for us?
Which laneway we're discussing, but if it's the laneway between the building and the two residences, that laneway will not be used by the building in any way, shape, or form. We actually intend to close the end of it, only limit the area that the city requires for the snow storage that's been there for a long time. But I'm not sure, but I believe that there's a request being circulated in a different manner. If the residents are willing to share the laneway half and a half, then the laneway can be closed completely. They could buy the half, the apartment building next door could buy the other half, keep it the way it is and close the dead end completely. And then the city will have no other dips to come into it or do anything. That's separate. That's a whole separate thing to complete the improvement of the area. Then that will probably alleviate the concern. Other than that, we do not plan to even have access laneway.
Yes.
To you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
If
His name.
Arnold back.
I'd like to know the particular. Corner, like 20. To me. How is. That.
Mr. Biasucci, question for you. Before we get too far down this road, because I think you've sort of addressed this issue in your comment already. Where is the primary access to the property?
not from the laneway, we
All
are
right.
we have no intentions of allowing access in the laneway, whatever. We share the same concerns. We have to maintain the access with the city, no storage, which we intend to maintain until such time that we get come into an agreement and purchase the laneway, take this to the equation, then it will become a private laneway. First, all the 110 ownership the Pursuit Group is interested in. If we take out, divide the laneway up, then the snow storage corner that Mr. Bumbak was talking about be the only corner before their driveway even comes close, and we will intend to put a fence at that point and limit, basically obstruct any intention of coming across that.
Ms. Kelly?
I just want to clarify something though. Mr. Biasucci just indicated that that is primary access or access to the unit, so there wouldn't be 113 cars going past his driveway. And there's no guarantee that more than what you suspect will use that laneway, correct? Yeah. The purchase of the laneway, the applicant's purchase or acquiring of ownership of the laneway with easements to the two parties that use that laneway, specifically you folks, is something that's under consideration. I don't know if you both, though, are, I know Mr. Bumbaco, you said you're in agreement to that, but I don't know that Mr. Brady is. And the reason I'm asking these questions is if there's a mutual agreement between the three of you, we can include that as a condition of any approval of this variance. But if it's just we can't make it a condition unless the three of you mutually agree to that. I haven't. Hmm? Hmm. So Mr. Biasucci may want to speak to how he would address that.
Did you have a comment?
Right.
Talking in north.
It's the dead end one, Mr. Green.
Remember. I'm up, please. And that laneway is not the primary entrance.
Not at all, Mr. Chair.
Gentlemen, if I just may. Gentlemen, if I may just interject.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. The
That's
meeting
okay,
got
that's
carried away
fine,
in the
gentlemen. Yeah,
negotiation. I
that's fine.
apologize.
So I'd like to remind everybody here, these gentlemen, Mr. Biasucci and his client they're acting under the approval already, under the permit. And what you're asking us to do, consider this, is not in front of us. And we don't have to impose any of this onto Mr. Biasucci's client. So what you're asking us to do is revisit an issue that's been dealt with. Everything that you're arguing at this point has been dealt with already and approved. And I have to make my committee aware of that when they make the decision on whether or not they approve this or they don't approve what's in front of us today. The second thing I need to address is a comment before we move forward. The comment of us simply going along with something. This is a quasi judicial committee where we make an independent decision and we don't go along with anybody here. We do what's in the bounds of the law that's in front of us today. And we are bound by that rule, not anybody else's. And the government and the legislation tells us that we can allow variances in these circumstances. That's why the committee exists, to allow variances. We do thousands a year. So I'd like to make that very clear to everybody here today. And with that being said, do any committee members have any comments on this that can help us get this application dealt with today?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for clarifying. Because
Yes. Yes, you are clear on that. Let's let member Bruni speak. I'll come back to you, Mr. Babako.
Sounds like. That's something that. They're willing to do. That's right there, little. Other. Just to keep it simple. Like. Neighbors. Neighbors, that's possible.
Yeah. The only wrinkle in that would be the city also has to be on board with closing that laneway, conveying it, and then Mr. Suchi or whomever would be responsible for closing, as people seem to have agreed on. And having said that, Member Bruni is correct in that portion, that laneway portion, whether it's open or closed and that sort of thing, has been has been decided by the Ontario Municipal Board, and there's no change recommended to that in this request. Although you're entitled to comment on the request in anything. The committee would be favorable to anything that makes the mutual, you all walk away feeling at least somewhat satisfied. And even if the condition that you're suggesting isn't related to the variance specifically being requested, understanding that if the committee is not in favor of 108 units, it all goes back to the original approval, which is there now, and that lane is the way it is. Anything that could move the application forward and not have you feeling like you've not had some say or not walked away with at least some resolution is not what this committee would want. They would want to try to accommodate you if they can.
The issue of the fence.
Chair, to Mr. Bruni's comment, we can agree to without because it is cannot deal with the lane closure today. That's a separate conversation. We can agree to put in a fence at the end of the city snow dump. The city snow dump must be maintained. There is no question about that. So putting a fence at the end of that won't interfere with any function whatsoever, other than it will assure there will be no traffic past the building parking lot. That would make Mr. Baco happy. We can, in a different format, then we can continue, and I will commit that we'll continue the conversation in a different area for the laneway permanent closure, and then the two of them have to agree, deal with legal. They'll do the lane closure, and then the whole idea goes away. The city will be happy not having the snow dump, and we're fine with making sure there's no traffic whatsoever. We don't need it. We have two entrances. We certainly do not need to go or allow that. So I'll be happy with actually closing that. I've discussed that with my client before, that access should be prevented in any way, shape, or form. Access out is just as evil as access in from unwanted vehicles. So that would be something that I think we be happy and walk away from here, and we can continue that discussion on the laneway closure. Actually, we can meet outside in the back after we're done this, finish it up. But for the purpose of this, we're prepared to carry a condition that we would put a fence at the end of the property, city property.
Okay, committee members, Mr. Biasucci is willing to have that condition of the fence on there. So for I'm gonna, Mr. Bambaco, Mr. Brady, are you amicable with that proposition by Mr. Biasucci? My question is more direct. Is that fence going to solve the problem here? Okay. Bottom line is. We would make that a condition today. Yes. Mr. Brady, I would need your confirmation of agreement to what we're talking about here. Yeah, so if it's deeded access, I don't believe that would be affected. Section established. Make. Well. Can't make that, I don't believe that's an issue we can consider today, no.
Where you're proposing fence where the snow storage is, doesn't impact the north, south, so that has no bearing on making it a condition with the fence.
All on board with that. Yes, yes, yes. We,
If you, miss, on that sketch that I provided there, or whatever, can I have yours?
Yep. Ms. Kelly, do you think you could show that to the members before one of them makes their motion? Thank you. Ms. Kelly does that. I think that was the crux of the, all right.
Can we ask a couple of questions not related to the laneway?
Of who, Mr. Biasucci? Oh, we've got some questions for Mr. Biasucci. I'll continue the discussion. And Mr. Biasucci, Mr. Greco has a question for you. Mr. Greco?
Do you want me to ask my question first?
Wayne, if you'd like to.
Make me. Sit. So. Where would? You had.
Okay, Mr. Chair to Mr. Greco, I know it's a bit confusing because all the variances were already approved prior to this. The actual change for the additional 4 units, we are providing 2 additional parking spaces. So in effect, we are adding 2 more parking spaces.
It's already been approved.
Yeah,
We're not no.
it's a bit confusing.
Yeah.
Believe me, this has been going around for quite some.
Yes.
And additional pretty on Queen Street.
Ms. McGregor, did you have a comment or question?
Thing I was gonna ask, and it's not real, I guess related because it's already. But because of the recent change in the bylaw, like this reduction would be approved at the next meeting. Like there wouldn't be an issue, right? Because we would only require 1 parking space. For the parking.
It's been approved. It's the same thing. Use show from one.
Yeah.
First. Council has already approved changing. So. Space per unit. Because the application was filed, before that was considered by council, it had to be looked at 1.25. And that measurement that we have here comes 1.25 per unit. Council, the one part. The bylaw has passed yet. Something good happened. Seen it, but something good. The planner refers to in looking at the minor feature of the application is it's going to be one space soon.
Sure, okay.
All right.
That's correct. Yes.
Do we have any comments from any other members? Any comments from anybody else? Sarah? Yes. Yes, sir. Andrew Sarlo.
Hello, I represent 36th Street on the west rim,
Thank you.
Could I? Please,
36th.
Mr. Cole?
Um,
Okay, you have it.
E. Sarlo at st.ca.
Yeah.
So the nature of the reduction, 1.25, the one. Residents Herrick Street on the west end don't want that to overflow parking. You know that this is part of this whole budget. Just comments, the neighborhood is that Herrick Street can't be the overflow. Apartment.
You mean the actual street itself? Like on the street, road parking? or-
Yes. And I don't know how it's expressed, but I think it's consideration that somehow that be in some verbiage that the street of Herrick is not the overflow parking for a reduction in parking spots for
That'd be,
Kim Street Apartment.
I mean, that I think would be almost like saying, Nicholas Avenue isn't meant for overflow of Pinos.
I understand that, but with the reduction of the spaces does pose a scenario where that could be more applicable than it would have been if there was one away. It's a statement of comment from the neighborhood. You asked for comment?
Yep.
So this is the comment that the neighborhood needs to make sure that that's not the overflow parking. And I don't know how you put that in play,
The-
but it's a concern.
The only way that could be put in is to have the city agree to signs on street,
They already did on the south side.
street. It would be our visitors or anybody's visitors wouldn't be able to park. Is it unreasonable for me to think that nobody from this unit is going to park on Herrick Street? I doubt that.
No, I don't think that's what is in question. It's just if it becomes the overflow. The scenario now during the build is parking. We understand. It's a construction site. We work in construction. We know the parameters and the need for parking. But if that was the continuing scenario, it would be problematic. That's just a statement of fact based on action of parking spots. So if you congest the parking area, they go somewhere else. That's the statement from neighbor. And what else I can say, if
Is-
it's predetermined as a 1-to-1 ratio as opposed to 1.25, then we really have nothing to do with this meeting.
2.5, we would, as it was, we would be here looking at the variance ratio being, the variance being greater than it is. And the committee would be either considering that that's still sufficient. Planning will be considering whether that meets downtown needs or not, be in the same spot. I think we can record the neighbors are concerned that there'll be too much parking on Herrick Street kind of thing. But there's nothing we can do to police that.
But on the south side of Herrick Street, so from him all the way to Pilgrim, on the south side, there are no curbs definitions for driveways and access points. What ends up happening is people park not knowing that they're actually parking, covering a laneway and or a entrance to a person's incoming parking spot of the residence. It's not as defined as you would with a curb and gutter subdivision. So I think there's a consideration that on that south side for sure, there needs, and there already has been put in signage corner back about halfway to the west. So it's just,
You will note that concern. We can't do anything about that, but you can. You can approach the city expressing that concern, Public Works. And in turn, they will look into what's appropriate to meet that.
understood.
And they'll do a review. I've had them do a review on one of my buildings downtown on the back of King Street. I've had them remove meters and put up no parking signs, and they come and they do a review. And if it's appropriate, they will put the signs up and do what needs to be done. So, you know, I encourage you to talk to Public Works and
Thank
they'll
you.
be able to assist you. Yes. Do you have any further comments before I put this to the committee for a motion and a vote? Seeing none, can I have a motion from a member of the committee, please?
I'll make them. Satis. Sorry, it's the variance.
Should add it,
That's have a second.
be a lease of a period of more than 20 years, and Mr. Biasucci indicated that's.
Yes. Mr. Rooney,
It's the way the lease states max. In their lease. Then they can. So it's 20. Our condition. Except 20 to more. Than satisfied. Yes,
well, that motion is still live.
yeah, and. Hang on. Sting. 10. $20 in a day. It's a lease of 20 years. And it's 10 years is enough given the magnitude of the building. They don't want those sold with that park. We want a lease of the parking. Something else doesn't move in here. This continue to park on Main Street for at least 25.
Thank you, Mr. Greco. That motion is still a good motion. Can I have a second for that motion? Mr. Bruni has seconded that motion. All in favor of the motion? Thank you. Motion carried. The application is approved. Those conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Biasucci. Thank you, gentlemen, for attending today and for your comments. We appreciate all the help we can get. And we're glad that everybody's had their issues resolved.
It's like be the decision.
It's on the record. She'll keep track of it. She's gonna be in touch with everybody that needs to be kept track of, okay? She's got your contact. You again, gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you. All right, Madam Chair, our next and last,
Agenda. Gallery to speak to it. The application B 424, it's 335 River Road. The subject property is designated residential in the official plan and is zoned single unit residential. It's located on the easterly side of River Road and abuts St. Mary's River. The applicant is seeking your consent to sever a southerly strip of property and convey it as a lot addition to the abutting property, being 331 River Road. The proposed lot configurations are the severed portion is 1.2 meters by 58.7 meters and is approximately 70.44 square meters in size. The retained lands are still a significant size, 19.3 meters by 106.1 meters and approximately 1,977.29 square meters. The intent of the application is to satisfy the required side yard setback for the existing deck at 331 River Road and to augment access to the waterfront from 331 River Road. And you'll notice that the severed parcel doesn't go all the way out to River Road. It starts at the midway down the property and out to the water, simply so that 331 River Road can cut grass or walk down there or have access to get to the water. And the side yard patio deck, it was not discovered that there wasn't sufficient space until the owner came forward with this application, and we realized that he added a little bit to what he was originally going to convey so that it would address the setback for that deck as well. And you don't really see it on the plan because there isn't enough room. And there were no objections to the application. The only conditions I recommend would be provision of a transfer deed of land, certificate application fee, reference plan, PIN abstract and map, minor variance if required. I don't believe there will be one. Discharge or charge of mortgage or partial discharge and payment of taxes.
Any comments from committee members on this consent application? Seeing none, this looks like a very simple application to me and one to which my opinion should be supported. So therefore, can I have a motion? Mr. Bruni. Very much. Can I have a second for that motion?
I will second that motion.
Mr. McGregor seconds the motion. Can I have a favor? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Our meeting, Madam Chair. Motion to adjourn, please. Motion to adjourn. Ms. McGregor, second by Mr. Bruni, all in favor. Motion carried, being adjourned. Online thing. Thank you. Check my